All right, everybody. Welcome back to the Bitcoin Plus Plus Conference live news desk. Joining us now, all right, we've got Randy, we've got Rob, and we've got Sankit. And you guys already had a talk on miniscript, right? You did your talk on miniscript.
Yeah, Lisa organized like a miniscript, like 2-hour like block yesterday for all of our conference talks.
Cool.
It was all like back to back to back.
Awesome. Okay, so look, you guys, you're going to educate me, all right, on this miniscript. So what is miniscript? Now, I don't know which one of you want to take this question. I don't know if you want to just go down the line. Yeah. Randy, you want to start off? Okay, cool.
So miniscript, it's I want to say it's adding types to Bitcoin script, and miniscript, it has a couple different components. There's a policy language that was developed on top of the base miniscript language, and that's even higher level. But yeah, at its core, miniscript makes Bitcoin script safer for people to use Bitcoin transactions with.
And I would defer to Sankit was one of the creators of miniscript, so he may be in a better position to kind of explain
why
what you were trying to solve.
What was it that kind of made the light bulb go on to do this?
Yeah, so story goes back to BSBD land where Andrew or Ticha was working on BSBDs. Maybe viewers are familiar with that, which is a way to share partially signed transactions. And once you have signatures for your transactions, you want some way to combine them. And yeah, so like, what do you do? How do you, if you have signatures from a multi-sig policy, or if you have signatures from a complex spending policy, how do you combine them together? And that's where that led to this miniscript. Miniscript was essentially, if viewers are familiar with finalizers, it's the smart finalizer is the motivation for which miniscript came from. And then Peter and Andrew started looking at things which can compose nicely, where you can have say 3 of 5, and one of them is 3 of 5 inside of it, and smart ways to compose. So that's how miniscript was born. And Randy's description is, I would stick to it. It adds types to script, and it makes it more safe.
How long did it take you to do this? Like, you've been working on this for years?
Most of the work was done before. So they had a version of miniscript. Peter and Andrew were working on a version of miniscript before I joined in for my internship, and then there was a earlier version with just 6, everything being as small 4 types without any associated properties. And after that, we found that we could do it in a better way. So we took a more systematic approach, defining things as properties for certain things and ways how they can compose nicely. That's so it took, let's say, 3.5 months end-to-end time for me. Peter and Andrew were mostly full-time on it, but Peter and Andrew's 3.5 months, they count much more. 3.5 months there would be a year plus for flips. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I think just to zoom out, why this is an important primitive.
Yes.
So Bitcoin script, right, in which this whole week the conference talk is about, is every Bitcoin address, every UTXO has some sort of rules in how you can spend it, right? You have your single sig, you have your multi-sig, you also have Lightning HTLCs. They're all certain rules that kind of, if you can unlock them, if you can provide certain conditions, you can spend the money. The real design case of what miniscript opens up is for application developers like myself and Randy to have known safe ways that we can do more advanced scripts. A very simple example I always like talking about is, what if you want to have a 2 of 3 multi-sig that becomes a 1 of 3 multi-sig if the funds haven't moved in a year? So you can do something like that. Or you can just have it maybe be a 2 of 3 that becomes a 2 of 4. So you can have a friend who holds a key who can't sign for it most of the time, but in disaster recovery, they can get access to it, right? So it ultimately, what miniscript does is it enables the 3 security tools we have in Bitcoin: signatures, right? You got time locks. Now, there are a couple of ways you can do time locks. You can do a calendar date, or you can do a block height. So you can actually do a time lock on a certain calendar date or on a certain block height. Or you also have relative and absolute. So you can say this moment in time, or if the funds haven't moved in this much time. So you almost can do a programmatic dead man switch, right? And this is, so this all works under the hood right now, because we have these time locks that were necessary for the Lightning Network to kind of manage channel states and force closes to make sure that if I cheat you, right, if I force close a channel with you in Lightning, you can take the money immediately, but I have to wait, which prevents
Yes.
me from being able to rug you, right? So we're just enabling the developer tooling in such a way that you can do more advanced script. And here's the really important part too, talking about PSPTs and finalizers, like you can't just like get signatures and just jump them on chain. Like you have to arrange the transaction so that the Bitcoin network can say, hey, I am properly executing these script conditions. And what miniscript does is it abstracts all of that away. So you can just put it into the PSPT finalizer and it works. And that's a really powerful concept. So you don't have to worry about managing custom scripts and custom ordering of like data in the signatures. It all just automatically works. And it does it in a way where it's all safe. You can, because you can design a script that has multiple ways to satisfy that condition. And that's a problem because you want to know the only way this can be spent is the way I intend it to be spent.
Yes.
And miniscript does that in a safe way so that, like I said, application devs can do more ambitious scripting projects without having to worry about foot guns.
So, who right now, I guess, are there any projects here that are leveraging miniscript?
I would say myself would probably be the one here at Bitcoin
Oh.
Plus Plus would be one of the big ones. The really big proponents that were also really pushing this before I got involved.
Yeah.
Yes, with Anchor
Anchor
Watch.
Watch. Okay.
Thank you, or Walton here, making sure I get the
That's
name
right.
plug in.
You got to say it.
Yeah, the Wizard Sardine Liana guys were also really big proponents of this.
Okay.
Kevin, Antoine, Edward, they were all like really pushing this. But we're using it for basically at a very high level, just being able to do insured custody for Bitcoin. And what that means structurally is here's another interesting thing you can do with miniscript. You can do a multi-sig of multi-sigs. So it could be my 2 of 3 plus your 2 of 3. And then you can say, okay, well, when the insurance contract expires and we're not holding risk anymore, it just goes back to your 2 of 3.
Wow.
Right. And this all works today without a fork. The really big development over the past year has been hardware wallet support.
That's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah. My laptop and my hardware wallets.
Sorry,
Well-
Rob.
Well, I mean, but yeah, it is. It is really exciting, right?
Like a pet or something to like cover their health insurance, like you can actually just buy Bitcoin regularly for the same like amount, and you can like it works as as insurance.
So it's about a question of risk transference. I don't want to turn this into an insurance talk, but there's different trade-offs on
It's
all
happening,
of it.
Rob.
Everyone has different risk
happening.
profiles. Yeah. The one thing I've been
Sorry.
talking a lot. I'll stop. The hardware wallets are now supporting it. So the cold card.
Oh.
So the cold card supports it. The Ledger was the first one to support it, like of the major ones. Salvatore, who's here, was a huge enabler for that. I had a Cyberbully NVK for like 9 months to get it implemented,
That sounds about right.
and now it's there. The Blockstream Jade also supports it. The Spectre DIY and the Bitbox O2. So now we have a good suite of signing devices, and that was the major unlock for application devs. No seed signer support. I've chatted with the seed signer team at TabConf last year, and they were poking around and playing around with it a little bit. They want to be very conscious in how they design for it, which is totally fair. So the design space is now opened up so end consumers can use it. Also, Bitcoin Core merged it as a version 25, was it? Yeah, so in version 25, so now even your core node can do it too, which is just awesome. So there's multiple ways you can execute and do all this stuff now. So that's enough of my shilling and plugging.
Very nice. Very, very nice.
Hardware wallet point, now you can have like, if you don't trust Ledger, Trezor, you can have a 3 of 5 where you can distribute your trust across several hardware wallet vendors, and this works just out of the box without having to set up custom protocols. That's the big win.
Very nice.
Are there any wallet softwares that are currently using this where if you wanted to create your own multi-sig with multi-sigs,
Yeah.
you could do that?
The two right now that are out would be Wizard Sardine Liana. They're the first ones that are. They don't do multi-sig of multi-sigs. They are focusing on like the vault and like the degrading multi-sig layers. Yeah, the degradation element, which is really powerful. Exactly. Mm-hmm. I think inheritance is a really important aspect of this too, because you're adding time as a security element. The other one is the My Citadel wallet from Dr. Maxim Olewski from
Yep.
RGB.
Oh yes.
And that one has more advanced. So if you want to do thresholds of thresholds and all that stuff, he has all of that stuff working out of the box right now. But I think inheritance is just really important, and adding time as a security element is a whole paradigm shift, which comes with its own UX trade-offs, right? If you want to do a relative dead man switch, it only goes up to 15 months. You can't go further than that. It's a quirk of BIP 68 where you only can go to 2 to the 16 blocks out, which is 65,000 blocks, which is 15 months. So you can do, but you could do a hard coded this block height, this block height, this block height. The trade off though then is that you have to move the funds before that time lock expires.
Yes.
So you have to do some sort of like liveliness check, and you have to kind of pick how you want to handle that.
Okay.
So I think Gregory a little bit Mercury layer. I understand Mercury layer is you have a similar sort of aspect that you have to like you have a limited time in which you can be spent actually for each time you pass on their are they virtual UTXOs? I'm not sure. Like that, it's like a virtual open time, right? Every time you pass it on or make a transaction, the length that it's, I don't know what the term is, the like the age of it remaining gets cut.
Yep.
Is that kind of similar?
Yeah, it's the same concept because they're using a time lock. So you have to move. I think they're using a relative time lock, which means that when the transaction confirms on chain, the clock starts. So you have to every once in a while move things around to make sure that you're actually refreshing it.
Actually, I want to ask Sankit, what issues did you run into while developing miniscript that you can remember? Because I know that this stuff is never a straight line. It never is a straight line. If you can shed some light on that, I think that that's interesting.
Yeah, so first, the design space is huge. So miniscript is a subset of Bitcoin script, and just defining what that subset is in itself is a challenge. Like so at one extreme you can like choose a wider subset of things, but then suddenly you're like what amount of expressive power or what amount of script efficiency do you gain from like choosing a wider subset versus having a smaller one with limited subsets, but that is like easier to develop. So there's one trade-off, and that's like just hard to evaluate in general. Like how much complexity do you want to add right now, so that like maybe you have slightly more efficient scripts, but is it worth it, or at what point where do you draw the line? That's number one. The number two part is just like choosing, like there are different ways to do say compose things. Like I want to do A and B. I want to use a script with my key and Rob's key. So in Bitcoin script we have several ways of doing doing an AND combinator, like A and B, and having like coming up with different ways to do that, and having a policy compiler as Randy mentioned, which correctly optimizes based on each use case. Like maybe if you have an OR where the first path is really unlikely, then maybe you should use these script opcodes instead of some other script opcodes. So the difficult part was one of them was like the policy compiler. The other one was just like choosing what exact scripts do we want. And once we have that, having the composition rules and everything that works out in a fairly systematic way. But those two would be the harder ones.
Awesome. I'm always fascinated.
I did want to mention that Sankit's talk was about covenants in miniscript, and those are really hard to deal with in miniscript as well, right?
Yeah. So yeah, there's lots of talk and covenants in miniscript, but that's to be separate. Like covenants are future upgrades that we don't have as of now, but still we can fit those in miniscript paradigm. In some
elements,
which
in
is
elements what Liquid is built off of.
Yeah, so we have an extension of elements of miniscript for elements, where you can also use these covenant opcodes in miniscript style to gain more expressive scripts.
Are you saying that you can do covenants in miniscript without like activating? No, you're saying that covenant the activation of covenants will further the power of miniscript.
Yeah.
Do we answer that?
Okay.
Yeah, we need opcodes, but it's a part of them fits into the miniscript paradigm. So you can get out of the box tooling for like if we add new miniscript fragments like Trezor or in future wallets would be able to sign for it for covenant codes, or you could design things where it is a CTV tree of like 32 things. And in fact, that's how Jeremy Rubin implemented Sapio using miniscript extensions for CTV fragments. So it's a useful building block for new future things that we might have, because ultimately what we want to do is like that covenant by itself is useful, but the real power comes in when you compose it with other things. How do you use this covenant with multisigs? How do you use this covenants with like A or B? So that's where miniscript gives you the power to compose these things, and that works with covenants too. But yeah, we need covenants to use that, but this will have tooling for them when they come out.
So for the less technical viewers, and maybe me and Phil too, do you think miniscript essentially enables better architecture of
maybe, yeah, in terms of designing covenants, you could use how miniscript is currently structured to see if a covenant should be, I guess, accepted in the Bitcoin community.
Mhm.
Because if you want to retain the properties of what miniscript can offer developers, then you'd want your covenants to be designed in a certain way. So now that we kind of have this framework, it definitely does help lead how we want to incorporate covenants and which ones we want to incorporate. And thinking about how it can integrate into miniscript is very important towards that.
So we got a question from XFrog, and I don't know if he was just trolling us or not, but he's asking about when macro script. So I don't know if any of you guys want to speak to that point, but I think he was just he's just trolling us, Rob.
Yeah, so this was at BitBlock Boom. All of a sudden, my Twitter mentions were blowing up, talking about the future innovation of macro script,
Okay.
and it really took off when NVK said that macro script was the future.
Oh no.
And I'm very.
so this is just cyberbullying. Is that
Yeah,
what you're saying?
I think I'm being cyberbullied. I think.
Wait,
I think
but NVK was at BitBlock Boom,
I guess so.
but I thought he said the Bitcoin conferences are shitcoins.
Yeah,
that's
sure.
that's controversial.
Yeah, I mean,
Huh.
Come on,
NVK's got an
Rodolfo,
answer
stay
for that.
consistent.
I think it was a good parody of myself, because for about 6 months I wouldn't shut up about it to
This is true.
everyone.
6 months, maybe 9.
Yeah, but then so I think that's trying to evoke the next wave of me just yelling at everyone to do the next big thing.
Okay, gotcha.
What's the next thing that you're going to be excited about in Twitter Spaces, Rob, after miniscript?
For now, I think I'm just gonna keep my eyes open and see what kind of comes next. I don't have a hype agenda yet.
I like that. All right, guys, that does it for us right now for this broadcast. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will be back later on. Take it easy.
Thank you.
Thank you.